What if your 20s weren't for burning out, but for biohacking your way to 120 or older?
If you're not actively growing, then you're actively decaying. I know it sounds
Mm.
harsh, but I think that's the truth. You see a lot of people not wanting to try new things and they're not challenging themselves. And that's why we see areas in the brain like the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, like that area will go down after retirement because they're not actively challenging themselves and trying new things. Everybody just gets very comfortable with where they are and they don't want to wander outside from that. And the ACC, that part of the brain, they've linked that to certain mortality measures.
Today's guest is building the blueprint for the future human. Matt Ibbs, founder of Zenith Health and Dartmouth-trained biomedical engineer, is blending science, supplements, and self-mastery to push the boundaries of what's possible.
The modern American diet, we're not getting a lot of those necessary macro and micronutrients that we were once getting. So I think having like a balanced multivitamin, at least that's like the most affordable option to stay relatively healthy. I really believe in what I'm putting out there, and I think it's something that we haven't seen in like terms of longevity science.
As longevity science continues to grow in popularity, questions continue to emerge over what is possible and what is worth pursuing. Today, we'll get to the bottom of such questions. Matt, welcome to the Grateful Podcast.
Hey, how's it going, man? It's great to be here.
Great to have you on, man. So, something I've been thinking a lot about with the Brian Johnsons of the world and stuff is what is worth doing? Like how much time and energy should I be putting into making myself live longer, healthier, and how much should I just be trying to live now and have fun? How do you pursue that balance?
It definitely took some time to really figure that one out. Um, I think at the core, you have to ask yourself why you want those longer years in your life. If you don't have that why factor, then you won't be as motivated on a daily basis to make those sort of actions and instill those personal habits and patterns. Because there's plenty of things I don't want to do every day, but I do them anyways because I know they're going to help my long term health. And it's not just my lifespan, it's my health span. I want to have high quality years of life when I'm 80 years old. I want to be running, marathons at 85 and, you know, not lose a beat, not skip a beat. So,
Marathons at 85, that'd be pretty impressive, man. That's awesome. Um, so you're 24 and you're doing things and already thinking about running marathons at 85. What age is right to start optimizing for longevity?
I think the sooner the better. I mean, of course, and this, especially in the past few years, you're definitely seeing on social media that this movement towards exercise, which I think is awesome because, it's better to start like now rather than never.
Hmm.
But I think the quicker you instill a lot of these habits, you're just much more likely to, keep them long term. And then it's also just having that base to work off of. You're just much more likely to um, like sustain it long term. Like something like VO2 max, which is like
Mm.
measuring your oxygen output essentially and input. And like raising that to like a 60 to 70 in those measures, like it's much harder to keep it there if you don't have that base when you're kind of training when you're younger, when like you're 20, 30 years old.
Interesting. Yeah, so I should start doing those long runs you were talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Um, huh. So I mean, you hear Brian Johnson say like 150, right? I I know nothing about biomed, so I hear that number and I'm like, this dude's crazy. He's saying this
Yeah.
for views, like, and that might be true. Uh, do you think that's possible? 150?
That's a good question. And I've considered that one myself. Like, how long can the actual human body just like stay sustained in like a viable state? And I don't know. I definitely can see us reaching something in the next 100 to 150 years to close to 140 to 150. So I do see where he's saying, like, where that can go. But as like a biomedical engineer, I'm looking more of like how we can, I don't know, transfer our information to maybe another like, person in itself, or it's less about like our bodies like sustaining.
Right.
It's more about the bridges and getting to bridge three that Ray Kurzweil invented about switching our bodies over to someone else, and that's when you're entering like the singularity concept. But in terms of getting there, you first have to be able to live long enough to like be able to do that. At least that's according to like guys like Ray Kurzweil and Brian Johnson.
Right. With the transfer of like yeah, with transferring essence of a human to another body, or I don't know what you'd say, like a capsule. I'm not really sure how that stuff works. It's so sci-fi, but I'm guessing you guys there's some ethical things with that too. Like I've read philosophical papers talking about the ethics of things like that. I mean, these were written 50, 100 years ago when people were just philosophizing over these ideas, and it's insane to think that could be reality. You could be making that these philosophers like just random thoughts they had at midnight. You could be making those into reality. That's crazy.
Yeah, we're definitely a far away, from that. And so that's why, on my platform at least, I'm pushing how to like, I guess, sort of protect our house, our vessel right now.
Hmm.
I always recommend, I think he's like the founding father of longevity, Ray Kurzweil. He's
Yeah.
like the modern day futurist, and he became viral about like 10, 20 years ago when he was saying that he was taking like 50 to 60 pills a day. And it's his whole theory of it's this bridge theory of right now it's just sort of how you go about your day to, sustain your health. And then bridge two is what we're kind of doing right now with, stem cell therapy and other alternative measures to sort of heal our body, while we're aging. And then bridge three is ultimately like our vessel is done, and now it's time to move your information over to another body because it can't reach that limit. At some point our bodies just can't, last. There definitely is a limit.
Right. And I also think there's a limit to just joy and like utility, you know? I don't know if I'm 130 or whatever, and I just doubt that it would be very fun. I doubt my life would be very I'm guessing it would be very monotonous. It would look very similar on a day-to-day basis, and I wouldn't get to do many of the things that I love. So I see where the solutions you're talking about would be much more ideal, because I'm guessing that you would be able to kind of restore uh, your body in a way that, oh, I can do things that I want to do now. I'm not stuck to trapped in this old body that
Yeah.
can't do anything.
And, I think that's really important with, even when you do have like a young body and, we all do like our sports and our different hobbies, right? You said you like climbing. As much as I love like running and stuff, I don't see that as much as that would be a good hobby to do long term. I also want to jump into, other topics. Like I think the worst thing that a lot of people do nowadays is sort of pigeonhole themselves into like one category, and they're like, this is what I'm going to do my entire life, and I'm not going to leave that. And on top of just retiring around 60, you see a lot of people not wanting to try new things and they're not challenging themselves. And that's why we see areas in the brain like the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, like that area will go down after retirement because they're not actively challenging themselves and trying new things. Everybody just gets very comfortable with where they are and they don't want to sort of wander outside from that. And the ACC, that part of the brain, they've linked that to certain mortality measures, and it's pretty accurate. The larger size your ACC is, or the longer you're going to live in some ways, or your health span. You're seeing people with larger areas of the mid-cingulate cortex having like lower rates of Alzheimer's.
Hmm.
It's still very early works research, but it's how you sort of perceive the aging process, not just how your body's actually aging too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to neuroscience, so I'm super excited to study things along those lines. It makes me think of, did you watch the Chris Hemsworth show with Peter Attia in it, where he was like trying to do different things to get healthier?
I think I've seen snippets of that. I love Peter
Okay.
Attia. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's cool. In the show, Peter talks about how the best activities you can do for longevity are ones that are not so monotonous, where like running, you're doing the same motion over and over and over again. Um, if you go trail running, then you're switching things up, and you have to think more, and your brain's challenged in a different way, and that change in movement is better for you. Or like rock climbing, you're never doing the same moves over and over, right? You have to, unless you're speed climbing, which isn't really a sport.
I think it's
uh,
cool though. It's really cool
it
stuff.
is cool. It is cool. Respect to those guys because it's difficult, but come on, that's not real
It's
climbing.
not real enough for me, you know.
Yeah,
You want to be
yeah,
on the edge of a cliff out in the wild, and that's it, right?
exactly.
You gotta
Yeah,
make it to the top.
exactly. Um, But yeah, like the changes in movement, how you're doing a different move every time, and it's really a puzzle. You have to visualize it. Like, from my understanding, that's what is really good for you and your brain and your health.
Definitely. It's all about constantly challenging your body with different ways, not just because, for example, with the gym, it's become such a popular fad, in recent years on social media, and it's good, right? You're increasing your muscle mass and your strength, which is just their key longevity ties, in terms of our all cause mortality. But I know a lot of people that love going to the gym, but if you're loving to go to the gym and you're not seeing it as a sort of a challenge and something that you don't want to do and you're forcing yourself to do it, that's where we see the activation of that anterior mid-cingulate cortex. It's when you're doing something you don't want to do. So that's why it's so important to try
Interesting.
different like forms of exercise, like you were saying. That same thing goes with running. Most people just like doing tempo, easy runs, but they don't want to do that trail run or they don't want to do that VO2 max training because it's hard. And so I think that's where you see the most growth is when you're actually, doing those things you don't want to do.
Is that one of the reasons why things like cold exposure, cold showers, cold plunges, all of that is so effective for longevity? I know that there's science behind the cold, but also like when I do that, I do not want to do it. That's like the biggest mental battle in the
Yeah,
world, getting yourself to do that in the morning. So, is that part of it?
definitely. Um, I do tell people to be wary of some of the research coming out, and you're hearing people on social media. I don't want to bash him because I think he's a good guy, but Gary Brecka, he's a big pusher of a lot of the pseudoscience around cold plunging. And I think it's awesome because you're challenging your body and you're doing something that who would ever want to do. But they'll talk about the blood shunting and the breakdown of brown fat, but those things have actually been debunked in research, or at least the data that they're suggesting is it's not significant. Um, because there was a lot of stuff going around social media, especially last year, that it was activating brown fat stores around your organs, and so they were saying it's the most effective way to burn fat rather than exercise. And so I tell people to tread carefully those sorts of things because similarly to metformin nowadays, people are looking for quick solutions, and
Right.
if they can just take a pill of metformin and then hop in an ice bath for 2 or 3 minutes rather than run a mile, they'll do that. And they think that might be, just as effective, but it's not. And so I always tell people to sort of like tread carefully with those quick pop up fads.
Yeah, 100%. Uh, is there science backing up that it is good for you though? Just maybe
Yeah,
not a
it's
fat
it's
burner?
yeah, the fat burning part is tricky, and I don't like to support that part. But I think just simply from a mental resilience standpoint, I think it's an awesome thing to do. I personally don't plunge, but I do the cold showers every morning. I just think that endorphin rush gets you ready for the day, and if you sort of see it like that and use it as a like a motivator, then I think you can't go wrong with it. I'm a big promoter of that.
I'm 18. I host the Grateful Podcast, and I've made a decision. I'm going to hit 100,000 downloads of my podcast before I leave for college on August 31st. I don't care how crazy it sounds, I'm all in. Every single day, I'll update you on my progress, wins, losses, strategy, doubt, everything. Let's see how far this goes. Follow along if you want to see me pull it off. or burn out in the process. I did it for so long, and I'm kind of out of the routine of it. I've not cold showered in months. It's interesting to think about. For a long time, and this will be interesting to get into because I know you said that I was looking at your Instagram and you were saying the first hour upon waking is the most important of your day. And then you went over your morning routine a little bit. Uh, if you're good, I want to share my morning routine with you, and you can tell me what you think of it. Or at least this is right now. I'll admit I'm kind of out of it. I've been working a lot, so that's kind of been priority, and I'm making some sacrifices. But when I am in my morning routine, and I did this for over a year, like every day straight, kind of crazy. This is what it is. I wake up 5 a.m. I go for a run as fast as as I get out as fast as I can. But first, I have like an Nalgene water of Element, um, the electrolyte, and then I usually go for about like 3 miles. I get back, I meditate for like 15 minutes, then I cold shower, and then I would read a little bit, and then on with my day, along with like a good breakfast and stuff, and some creatine. I just started adding that in. Um, what do you think of that? How's that for a morning routine?
I love it personally. Um, I think you're hitting a lot of those core parts to wakefulness that we all need in the morning. I think Andrew Huberman's made a great point with this. Like the three or four essentials that you need every day when you wake up is you need sunlight right away. You need to have like a meal within that first hour, and then just having some sort of endorphin rush, like the cold shower, or just even meditating. Like it can be such a fulfilling thing. Like you feel really good after you meditate. You're like, I just took some time for myself, and I'm dialed in on the day. And so I think having that, and then that kind of tackles the fourth point was going to be, is having that mental aspect of getting yourself prepared for what is to come. So it's like you have the optimism aspect, the endorphin rush. You got the sort of mental space off with the meditation. You got the sunlight, and you have your food. And I don't think you can ever go wrong with hydration. That's why you said you had the element and stuff. I love doing like a mineral salt with like lemon in it every morning.
Okay.
Doing that for years. It's pretty similar stuff. There's of course there's subtle nuances to those, but I think it's pretty great what you're doing.
So what's your routine look like?
It's actually pretty similar stuff. I would add I'm always a big stretcher,
Okay.
especially with all the running and stuff. I love getting that sort of movement in. So the second I get out, I think Chris Williams has said a similar thing, but I've been doing it for years now. The second I get up, I get my slippers on or my shoes, whatever it is, and I get outside. That's a non-negotiable for me before everything else. I just make sure I get outside and get some sunlight in me. Open up all my windows, just really take that first 5-10 minutes just to like recognize that I'm awake.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get usually right into the movement. I love to stretch right away. I think it's a nice, slow and steady way for me to wake up, and then I'll hydrate. I know a lot of people are just hydrate right away, and I think that's great. But
Yeah.
personally, I just love the like I was saying earlier, that endorphin rush, just getting movement right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, recently, since I've been doing less of the running and cold shower and even less meditation in the mornings, it looks like wake up, go downstairs and pour the element and creatine in my water and then head outside and like kind of drink that. And that I kind of I morph those together. So I make sure I'm getting a little space in the morning because the outside time I have no book in my hand, no phone in my hand, and that's some self time as well. That's
Yeah.
been really nice for me. But I definitely think that grinding back in a nice morning routine would be ideal. But in order to do that, I need to ground in a nighttime routine so that I can get enough sleep to do that because that's definitely been a challenge for me. Just staying up late, not being able to put a pause on what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, we can go through sort of like the night routine too. I think that's just as important as the morning routine. I like to say the morning routine is more important just because it's setting the tone for the day. But I think what you do at night sets your tone for your morning routine is,
It's like
tail end of both ends
the
of sleep.
chicken or the egg type thing right
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Exactly.
What's
Um,
yours look like?
so it's a non-negotiable after an hour and a half before bed. There's no more screen time. I turn off roughly all my lights in my apartment, and it's just now it's me time right before bed. Um, I usually start with reading for about 30, 40 minutes. I'm a big reader. That sort of calms me down. That gets me in like a nice relaxed state. And then I'll pull out my journal. I start writing whatever's on my head, right? Pour everything out onto the page, whatever it is. Just try to really disconnect from everything in your life. And then after you feel kind of relaxed, you can take the time just sort of reflect on the day in a positive manner. So you can just practice gratitude. But personally, my favorite thing, I don't think it gets enough sort of popularity on social media, but it's just going through every hour of the day and just thinking of one good thing that happened. It could be as simple
Interesting.
as, oh, like the sunrise was really pretty this morning, or oh, like someone like texted me and like I hadn't heard from them in a while, and it just put me in a good mood for a second. Or it can be a big win, right? Like you just went to the gym, you got back, like the cold shower was great, whatever it is. But you go through every single hour and you find that one good thing. And you realize is that even the worst days in the year, you can still find a good thing in every hour. Like it's the truth. There's always something to be happy for, seriously.
Huh. I love that. I really, really do uh like that approach. That's a great like gratitude practice, and it's a great way to reframe your day. I
Yeah.
was listening to Alex Ramosi on Chris Williamson's podcast. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. They did like a 4 hour episode. It was insane. But they talked a lot about um, finding like how every day could be a good day, even if like you thought it was horrible, right? Like you have every moment or every hour, every day, they have good moments, and that's what you could choose to focus on to reframe what the day looked like to you. And when we look back on things, I found this insight interesting. We often do forget the bad details and we remember the good ones. Like a lot of people will talk about like the good old days, and you're like, you were miserable during the good old days that you're talking about, but you remember certain aspects. I think that's kind of a hopeful thing to think about when you're looking back on your life, you will probably remember the good times.
Yeah. No, it's so true. Like you're not going to remember the time that you were running 5 minutes late to work, but you're going to remember you know, the good mood a coworker put you in when you were, you know, when you ran in late, the other person, said a good compliment to you, and that set the tone for the rest of the day. And you'll remember that, a few years later. But yeah, you're totally right. That's a great way to reframe it. You know, you
Yeah,
tend to remember the good things.
especially the little moments. We really do remember the good little moments. And I think something I've thought about recently is optimizing for recognizing the little moments, because there's certain mind states I can be in. I'm guessing you you similarly, or my audience, a lot of very ambitious people can get in like a I'm in work mode type thing. And when you are like so dead set on a goal, sometimes you need that, and that's okay. But you're going to be tunnel visioned and kind of overlook some of the little things that could have been the best part of your day or the thing in your hour, right? And so, how can we optimize? This is a question I've been asking myself. How can we optimize for recognizing these great little moments? And I think it's like setting our day off right, or just focusing on joy, you know?
I definitely struggle with that too. I think a lot of people struggle with it nowadays. It's that whole conflict of type A versus type B people. And everybody's heard the phrase type A people have type B problems and type B people have type A problems. And I would consider myself a type A person. And I imagine you give off type A vibes too, which is I think it's a good thing, right? We want to get things done. We're time conscious, we're goal oriented, but sometimes you need that person that can kind of check up on you in life and you're like, it's okay, you can take a break here, right? Like you got to take your wins where you can get them. And you know, I certainly have fallen victim to, you think you almost had like a perfect day, right? You hit everything down, at least what you think in your schedule, and you still don't think it's good enough. And you're like, I still could have done this one more task, and now I'm behind. But that's why I think it's important in a night routine to really just recognize your victories from the day and, just take that time to reflect and be like, that was a good day, because every day is a good day. You know, I'm a big fan of the entry fee mindset, where even all your struggles in that day, this is also kind of goes in line with going by each hour and finding that win. You can go by every hour and find that one bad thing that happened, and then apply entry fee mindset, which is basically from every bad thing, there is something you're learning from it, right? Like you were stuck in that line at the bank,
Hmm.
right? And that's annoying, but guess what? That's going to, now you're going to be more patient in the future. Or, maybe someone at work, was rude to you and, maybe it hurt your feelings, but guess what? Next time you're going to be a little bit more resilient to that. You're not going to get so affected by it. There's always something you can see in the positives from the negatives. And so I think if you go through each hour and do that also,
Yeah, yeah. Everything that we view as negative has positive consequences. And if we can recognize that, I think our life feels so much better in general. I was gonna say it feels almost perfect in a way because we realize that whatever just happened to us, uh, we'll get something good out of it, and we'll be able to turn that, alchemize it into something good. That's why I love. My favorite book is The Alchemist. Have you read it?
yeah,
Such a classic.
yeah.
But yeah, we have the ability to turn our circumstances into gold. You know what I mean? No matter how bad of a thing might happen to us, even though the boy had all of his money stolen, that gave him the opportunity to learn new skills at the crystal shop, right?
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
I think it's such an important thing to see, because I think it goes very well with having that big picture mindset, right? Like we're doing this podcast today, and then I see your content. I know you have a vision for this being just like a Chris Williams pod, right? Something really big. And I know you're going to get there because you have that vision. You're laser focused on it. And I think Alex Hermosi has this one quote that I love. He's like, you do so much volume where it's impossible to fail. And I think that's such an important way to look at like social media content and just all this sort of things. Like the more content you put out there, the more likely you are to succeed, because you keep on doing it, eventually it's going to just take off, and there's really nothing to say otherwise, right? I mean, all these guys are living proof. Like I think Chris Williams said he's, I don't know how many episodes of his podcast he did, but he said in like the first like year or two he had um very low viewership and stuff, and then it just hit this one part, and ever since it's just been exponential, right? I mean, he's one of the most known podcasters in the world, so
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Yeah, the quote is like make put so much work in that it's unreasonable that you're not successful. And that's the way I like to think about it. It's definitely difficult as an 18-year-old getting respect from people on the internet who have never met me. Um, and so that's been my biggest thing. Like, how can I make it unreasonable that they say no to being on my podcast? Or how can I make it unreasonable that someone doesn't follow? And I think that's everyone's like problem. They want to make it unreasonable that they fail.
one thing I'll promise you is, I'm 5 years, or what is it, 6 years older than you. And so people that are 6 years older than me that are 30 years old, they're looking at me the same way that like maybe some of my age. It's no matter what age you are, they're always going to be the older person that thinks that you're younger and more inexperienced. And I just say, take it on the chin. Don't let it bother you. It's one of my favorite things that I just always tell myself, only you can legitimize yourself. There's no reason to have these other people validate, so what you're bringing out into the world, it's only you that can validate that. So,
Yeah,
I always say that to
exactly.
myself. That's the truth, because especially with all this, you know, producing content and stuff, you have to believe in it yourself first before you can let anybody else validate it.
What led you to pursuing what you're getting into?
I've just, you know, I've always considered myself like very different, and I've always had a lot of wacky ideas, and I think people appreciate that. And I have that engineering background and stuff, and I think I had a unique approach, or at least my long-term plan with my Zenith is to have more of a unique approach with engineering focused on the health, because I like to think of our body as like a kind of like a computer, and that like the aging just a coding error. So you sort of have to, if you take away all the emotions and stuff at times, and you can sort of look at the body like this aging problem and just how do you fix it, and you can kind of put it on the pen and paper and just figure it out from there. And so that's the value I'm trying to put out into the world, is to sort of strip a lot of the typicals that people like to look at in modern health, and you know, tackle it head on by looking at a lot of these like longevity measures, like a Peter Attia, like he like is very focused on VO2 max, whereas like a David Sinclair is more focused on HbA1c, and then like a Brian Johnson, he's very focused on sleep. These guys all have different pockets and stuff, and I just want to be kind of like an umbrella that can just look at these things and find a way to steadily quantify them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome, man. It seems like you're on the way. You have a lot of different products up on your site. It's sick.
Yeah, it took time, and part of the paving the way is to figure out exactly where you want to go first. And I don't think there's what I imagined myself doing a few years ago when I started Zenith was never what I'm doing right now. You have to anticipate that your purpose is dynamic, and that, as you go, you sort of figure it out. And, no idea is ever fully formed. It's always just, you have that big picture. Like, yeah, I know you have your big picture, and just let it be dynamic. Things are going to change. Maybe you change your podcast name, or maybe something, maybe you decide to contact different types of people. It's just be open to variation, which is have that end goal in mind. And I think that's just the most important part.
I think dynamic purpose is something that I wrote down in my notes yesterday while I was just somewhere random. It's so amazing that you say that because, yeah, we do have this. A lot of people have the idea that their goals are static and their purpose is static, and they're always reaching for this one thing, right? And there's the illusion that if you do end up getting to that thing, then you're good. But in reality, that's never the way it is. So you have to be content with a dynamic purpose because it'll always be moving. Everyone is always moving the bar further and further away because human experience is just relative. So we're only looking to get to a point relatively further than we are now. We're not looking for just I don't know anyone that is satisfied once they reach an objective measure.
Never. And, I think that's why we see a mortality spike around retirement, because at least less of our generation, we tend to have a lot more resources now to take on a lot of different hobbies. But at least in prior generations, everything was work. And that was kind of what they were all in on. And then they retire, and suddenly that purpose kind of fades away. And then they're kind of scrambled brains that they can't figure out what they really want in life anymore. And yeah, that's why you see like a mortality rate around like that 60 to 70 range. And I think a big part of it is there's no definitive evidence as to why, but I believe it's because of purpose. I think that's such a pivotal part to living a longer life, is just knowing why you want to live longer and what's going to keep you going. Because if you don't have that, then what's that motivation to get up early every day, see the sunrise, and, drink that salt water that you really don't feel like drinking. All those little things, you just force yourself to do them because you want to live to see the next day, and you want to, have a higher quality next day. Like that's what it's about.
Yeah. Do you envision yourself retiring at like the common age, or do you think you'd want to work longer than that? I know it's long, it's a far away thing to think about.
No, I think it's great to look at. I'm like very optimistic of the aging process, and I can't wait to be 30. I can't wait to be 80. I love being 24. I think it's good to like see aging as like an opportunity, right? Like, because every sector of our life, there's always something else to look forward to. And I personally don't plan on ever stopping. I would hope that what I do online with my platform can always, be there until I'm, 6 feet under. I think it's good to sort of have that mission always and just be very goal oriented, from start to finish.
Yeah. My grandma, she's still working, and and she just loves it so much, and I don't think she'll ever stop. And I see what a big part of her life it is, and how happy it makes her. It's definitely made me rethink what we're told about work, and it just being something that provides for the things that you want to do. And I don't think that's what our work's meant to be. I don't think work is meant to be secondary and just the thing that's paying for your life on the weekends, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have that where, it's great to have hobbies, and of course I have hobbies and you have hobbies, but it's like you said, when it's secondary, then you're seeing it more as an obligation than an opportunity. And I think seeing the work as an opportunity, right? Because every day you're going to learn something new. Um, there's skills you're developing that can apply to other things, right? Like for me, for example, my main job right now, like the amount of things I've learned and I've like soft skill wise and applied to like my Zenith and other platforms that I work on, like there's always like a lesson you can take from that grueling 9 to 5 that everybody likes to talk about. And, there's something you can, there's always something there you can learn. And I think that's the best part, right? Like you have to keep on steadily learning and, past retirement and stuff, maybe you don't have a job, but maybe want to take on a new hobby. You want to start reading a new book category, whatever it is, something where you're staying engaged and growing. It's the growth mindset that's the most important thing. If you're not actively growing, then you're actively decaying. I know it sounds
Mm.
harsh, but I think that's the truth.
Yeah. Well, that would be the scientific version of it, right? If something's not growing, it would be decaying.
Yeah. There's no like
And
sweet spot where you just everything's all perfect, right? And nothing's changing. There's always you're either going up or you're going down.
right, it's like you throw something up in the air. There's maybe that super split second where it hits its apex and it's stable, but it's just microscopic time. In our lives, biologically, what's that growth and decay look like?
There's a lot of different measures with that. But I would definitely the one I'm the biggest believer of is VO2 max.
Yeah.
That's the one you often see with like high intensity interval training and other sorts of cardiovascular exercise. And I think that's the most accurate measure of longevity when we're looking at it. And you see around a 2 to 3% drop in VO2 max after the age of like 32. But if you do the right practices and stuff, you can actually mitigate that decline. So you see these people at like 60, 70 years old with a VO2 max of a 25-year-old. And so I think it's totally doable, and you can fight that aging process because it's going to come and the earlier you fight it, the higher that bar is, right? Because if you're 25 and you're training for, a high intensity session and your VO2 max is around a 70 or 80, and you're losing around 2 to 3% per year, the higher you set your bar before that decline does happen, and then you maintain it through the exercise, you're just not going to reach that suboptimal level, when you reach 70 to 80. So that's why it's so important to start the measures as young as possible so that you raise your bar so high and then you try to maintain as much as you can for that decline, but you still have it sustained over a higher level than, what's recommended for your age.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. So talk to me because I have a vague understanding of VO2 max, but break it down for me like on a simpler level. Like I'm a kindergartner, I guess, because that might be my understanding.
It's in a nutshell, in a one sentence nutshell, it's how effectively your body uses oxygen. So it's
Okay.
per every like millimeter or milliliter of oxygen, it's like how much you're actually retaining and using for your cells. And so the people with the highest VO2 max, for every breath, they're really utilizing that oxygen and stuff. And so that's why they're able to sustain such long distance running at such a high intensity because you're utilizing oxygen so well. And
Interesting.
even at
Th-
base levels, when you're not exercising, they just tend to regulate oxygen better. That's why their sleep's better. It applies to a lot of other things outside of just the high intensity training.
Do people that live in high altitudes have higher VO2 max?
Yeah, some of them do.
Yeah.
Especially if
So
they
like,
train for it. That's why a lot of those guys, when they train up there with like the Sherpas and stuff, when they
hmm
come back down, they just feel that much, better with their running.
that makes sense. So what's like the baseline VO2 max that you're talking about?
So For people around our age, like if we're, I would say between 20 and 40, you would want to have your VO2 max to be at least a 50. Uh,
Okay.
once you get to be doing 60 and 80, that's like the higher end of VO2 max, like athletes. But you see some of these like marathon trainers have as high as a 90, which is actually insane. Especially when you see some of them pushing like over 40 years old and they're having an 80, 90 VO2 max. It's actually incredible. But I would say having at least a 50 in the VO2 max, like that's key.
What's yours?
I've done a couple of VO2 max tests and I'm not 100% sure what it is right now, but I would say mine's right around a 70, 75.
Nice, bro.
Yeah.
So, like, are those, I know certain like watches or different fitness devices measure that stuff. Is that accurate enough? Like, is it, I'm guessing it's not super accurate, but is it ballpark?
That's why I was hesitant to say what it roughly is. I like those because like a watch like Morpheus or like Morpheus, I think is the best longevity garnered fitness watch out there. And they're really good with the VO2 max. But I think personally, the best way to do it is with having someone actually professionally watch you do a Norwegian 4x4 of high intensity interval training. And they're just actually seeing with an oxygen intake how much oxygen you're able to take in that high intensity. And you're seeing your max amount of oxygen intake, like in usage. I haven't done that
Interesting.
before, but
Yeah.
I no,
Are
I've
there
done.
any other metrics that are really good for testing or gathering your where you are on a longevity basis?
Yeah, I would say HbA1c, HRV, muscle mass, and muscle, size. Um, HbA1c, that's like basically how your body's regulating its blood sugar. And so
Okay.
David Sinclair at Harvard, he's very big with that because he only does one meal a day because he thinks that having it in such a compressed period of time that keeps his HbA1c at a lower level. And then like HRV is heart rate variability, and we see that people that have higher HRV, they tend to sleep better. They have better REM. They have better deep sleep. And so people like Brian Johnson, they're really obsessed with HRV because they see, he's getting like Whoop scores, I think at like 99%, 100%. He's got some of the healthiest HRV measures out there.
Interesting.
And of course, there's that strength training component with the muscle mass.
So if I like I'd say I have a pretty good amount of muscle mass at this age. If I like continue to build that, is it similar to what we were talking about with VO2 max, where if I build it to a high level of muscle mass, then I'm above the baseline. So as it declines as I get older, like it's better to do that. So I'm still
Exactly.
above the minimum threshold or whatever.
Exactly. It's a similar thing. Right around 30 to 32, that's when we start seeing sarcopenia, which is degenerative loss of muscle in the human body. And yeah, you'll see that drop, right, to 2 to 3%. But I always like to add that 2 to 3% can get completely eliminated almost, or they can potentially grow if you maintain, strength training in your routine. So let's just say you raise it, like for the VO2 max, let's just say you get it up to like a 75, 80, around 32, but you continue to do your training after 32 as you decline. You might still maybe decline a decent amount, by the time you're at 60 or 70, but because you're still continuing to do that training, you're going to keep it above the threshold and you'll probably have a higher VO2 max at 60 or 70 than uh, a high intensity interval trainer like at 25, just because they've been doing it for such a long time. And
That's really interesting. Yeah, that's cool. Um, and it's kind of like it's the compound effect, Darren Hardy. Like just the more you do something in the earlier you start, you just earn interest on it over time.
yeah,
So I was looking at your store, and the first supplement I saw was berberine. I'd never heard of it before. I think that's just me being out of the conversation because I've heard of it, but I don't know what it does. So I wanted to ask you, like the purpose of it, why you use it, how often you use it.
yeah. So I have you heard of metformin before? It's a common diabetes drug that people take for when they to better regulate their blood sugar.
Okay,
But essentially, this one it's still in the early works, but metformin's been found to kill cancer stem cells. but someone that doesn't isn't like pre-diabetic or diabetic isn't getting prescribed metformin. But we've seen in early studies berberine having similar cancer-fighting effects, targeting these stem cells similar to metformin. And so berberine's more of a plant compound, but I think anybody taking something, natural supplement, it can always help. So that's sort of why I'm a big promoter of it.
Yeah, especially if it's killing cancer stem cells. I love that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's huge. I mean, again, it's very early on, but it's a perfectly healthy supplement to be taking.
Yeah. Um, it's insane what the industry, how much it's grown in the past decade or even less. What do you think it'll look like 10 years from now, 15 years from now?
Yeah, I do want to add one point to the sort of the whole supplement industry is that you definitely have to
Yeah.
tread carefully with all the wacky, like this is the cure-all supplement out there because most of that's kind of like just a quick sale, right? There's a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
influencers that are just kind of, trying to make that quick buck, telling people that this is the cure for aging and that like, I'm a big fan of like NMN and NAD. I'm sure you've seen stuff on there promoting
Yeah.
those sorts of supplements. And I think they're great, but the truth is there's just no end all be all like anti-aging pill. You're still going to have to like get up every day and exercise and, make all those measures yourself. There's never going to be that quick solution.
That's a great point. And it's a great business. Like right now, it's a great business thing to take advantage of. Like from my business mind, it's horrible, but so many people are doing it because everyone wants that solution and everyone can rebrand something as a new quick fix. So they're gonna do that and take advantage and uh, take advantage of human psychology, which wants the quick fix and doesn't want to do the work. But
Exactly.
it's not ever gonna. At least it seems like it. We're always going to have to work out and eat healthy. Like those are just not things that we can skip around. I'm 18. I host the Grateful Podcast, and I've made a decision. I'm going to hit 100,000 downloads of my podcast before I leave for college on August 31st. I don't care how crazy it sounds. I'm all in. Every single day, I'll update you on my progress, wins, losses, strategy, doubt, everything. Let's see how far this goes. Follow along if you want to see me pull it off or burn out in the process.
Yeah. It's the harsh truth. And I've been writing for a few years, and there's that part of my book that I'm hoping to come out within the next year is that's definitely a big portion of like with modern society, with our technological mediation, and we kind of expect everything to just come right away, right? Like, let's think 20, 30 back, 30 years ago, right? When we weren't even born, our parents, when they didn't know something, they would have to go to the library and figure it out. But nowadays, you can look it up on ChatGPT or Google and find it out in 5 seconds. And so, and guess what? If you don't get in that 5 seconds, everybody's going to grow impatient, right? And they want to get it right away. But that's sort of like with health too now. Everybody's looking for that quick fix, and they're not. I don't know. I feel like we're attacking and like degrading delayed gratification and the importance of that nowadays. Like there's value in something taking time, right? If you could just for your first running session run a marathon, then it wouldn't be enjoyable. Like the fun of it is the fact that you struggle with a mile at first, and then maybe 10 years down the line you're running an ultra marathon, or even like some of these longevity measures we're talking about. It's not just like 6 months of training that you're going to bring it to the top threshold of athletes in the world. It takes years of training. But a lot of
Yeah.
people now they're just growing impatient, and so that's going to be a big part of my book coming out. Hopefully, is that this importance of understanding the time lag, that things take time, and what you do today is going to be affecting you in 3 months from now. It's not just like cookie cutter.
Also, the journey's the fun part. The journey, we're always in the present, right? Our lives are in the present. We shouldn't be trying to get out of it so much. Right? This is the part that we can enjoy. There's no movie without the conflict. I don't know why it's so hard to understand.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm excited to read your book. That sounds like it'll
Yeah.
be amazing.
It's been something I've been working on for a long time. I really believe in what I'm putting out there, and I think it's something that we haven't seen in like terms of longevity science. I think a lot of people have like the very technical, all the measures and stuff, but my books could be very focused on like longevity mindset and how to kind of break down your day and how you perceive the world. And that's, I think, what is such a big part of instilling these habits because, you can hear Huberman or Peter Tia, these guys tell you to do something, right? But if you don't have like the right foundation of like how to like do these things, and you're just not going to sustain these habits long term. So it's all about how you go out, and do these things and see them.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll have a little bigger of a platform by then that can help you promote your book and get you back on. Um, so back to, I'm curious about the future of the industry. So back to that question, like, what do you think the biomed industry will look like 10 years from now, the supplement industry? How will it evolve?
I think AI is the first word that everybody thinks of right now, and it's actually getting very real in the med tech industry. Being at J&J, I get to see a lot of those sort of like newly initiated products that are on like the forefront of the hospital systems.
Yeah,
And actually, this year it is public now, and we are under. Um, it's getting used in some surgeries, but there's AI assisted hip fracture surgeries where yeah, it's called Virtue Guide. And essentially, so when someone has an intertrochanteric fracture of the hip, it's just a certain type of hip fracture. What we do is a cephalomedullary nail. And so this is intended to, I got to backpedal for a second. Essentially, everybody has a femoral neck angle, which is your femoral neck, your acetabulum, and then your actual femur. And it tends to be around 130 degrees, right? This femoral neck angle, but it varies, right? It gives or take. Some people have a 125, some people have a 135. And what this Virtue Guide AI technology is doing is it's measuring what the exact angle this person's hip implant should be to fix their fracture. That's it in like a nutshell.
okay.
Because we do in these cephalomedullary nails that we're doing for these hip fractures, you're not just setting a nail down the actual femur, they're sending it up into the femoral head, this leg screw. And
Yeah,
that's what's creating that like sort of hip and acetabulum like structure to actually like help the hip rebuild. But with these AI now, you're getting the picture perfect angle for that hip. So you don't throw off their gait. And there's the likelihood of proximal cutout through the actual femoral head of the implant, it drastically reduces. We're going to see such reduced complication rates with surgeries like that. And that's just hip
that's
fractures.
great. Yeah,
That's just in orthopedics and stuff. I figure that's a good example because, hip fractures are by far the most life-threatening fracture out there. And so if we can tackle that problem, it will be a lot easier to apply it to other areas.
dude, that's crazy to think
Yeah.
about. Yeah, I had no idea that. I wonder, yeah, I wonder what else that's going to get implemented into. If someday we'll just have AI pretty much leading surgeries and then they're just other people monitoring it. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
wild.
that's definitely where we're going, and I like to touch on that part with the AI assisted surgeries, just because, like I was talking about earlier, with the bridge 1, 2, and 3 that Ray Kurzweil talks about in his sort of like futurist concept, we're definitely in bridge 2 right now, right? People like me and you, we're going to do our regular things on a daily basis, the right diet, adequate sunlight, sleep, whatever it is, exercise. We're doing those measures to keep our bodies sustained. But now it comes into like the biotech side of things where we're having these better surgery outcomes. Um,
Hmm.
there's better stem cell therapy. We're taking all these different measures to hopefully get to that bridge 3 where, we're going to be crossing over nanotechnology and other um, technology with the body, and that's where you start getting into um, what people think of as the modern day like cyborg. Essentially, there's no other best way to describe it, but like
Yeah,
the full integration of technology with humans.
science is amazing, bro. I love it so much. I'm psyched
Yeah,
to. get more into the field in the upcoming years.
You'll love it, man. I had some friends with in the neuroscience background. They all loved it. It really
Yeah,
is great.
so cool. So another thing I'd like to touch on is this longevity, everything. It's so expensive. Supplements are so expensive. So how can the average person, like let's say they have $50 to spend on their health a month. What do you think the best way to allocate that is?
Number one, always just a methylated multivitamin. Have like a high quality multivitamin that you can rely on. I think that's like a baseline that everybody needs. And then after that, I think you can start getting into all these different routes. But as much as I offer all these different supplements on my store, and other people promote these supplements on their stores, I think at a baseline, everybody needs to take a multivitamin.
Yeah.
In the modern American diet, or yeah, I'm going to say American because I think we're below the bar like compared to other
Yeah.
countries. But in the modern American diet, it's just we're not getting a lot of those necessary macro and micronutrients that we were once getting. So I think having like a balanced multivitamin, at least that's like the most affordable option to stay, relatively healthy. But then you can start going down the rabbit hole of like the creatine,
Mhm.
and the other supplements out there, which I'm a big promoter of, but you don't need to be taking them. It can only, I think, enhance your life. But yeah,
Dude, creatine works. Like, I mean, I'm obviously not the first, I'm like the millionth person to say this on the internet, but yeah, it's amazing. I've been taking it for 2 months now, and I was like, wow, okay, it's actually it's working.
it's great. I've been on and off taking it for about 4 or 5 years now. I think around every 6 months, I like to take a back off of about like 5 to 6 days. We just don't take it. You kind of treat it like it's like a sort of a cycle in itself, but beyond just like the muscle mass and the increased water retention. So it's better getting resources to your muscles, but it's really good. Everybody is saying that the whole world about it being having its nootropic effects.
Mhm.
It's great. I really recommend it, and I never see a time when I don't take creatine. And against that common belief of, you know, a lot of women out there don't want to like go to the gym and don't want to take creatine and all these sorts of things. Like it's just as important for women as men to be taking creatine. Um, in fact, so now there's certain studies coming out that even recommend people taking creatine if they don't go to the gym, just because of those nootropic effects.
That's crazy. It's definitely helped with my climbing. I think it allows me to recover faster so that I can climb hard like the next day if I had a session or like really hard. If I had a really hard session, I only need one rest day as opposed to two. It's really nice.
It's huge, right? And it helps you get to that level you're trying to get to at a quicker rate and in a fair way too. It's a totally natural supplement. Our bodies make creatine and it's in stuff like meat products. So, it's something totally healthy. No one should be taking any of these like steroids out there or these other testosterone boosters. They should be purely focused on, natural supplements like creatine that have been like proven time and time again through thousands of clinical studies that, you know, are effective.
That's important. Yeah, it's crazy the steroid use and obsession over how we look from men in our generation, especially. It's wild.
Yeah, I'm really concerned with our generation with it goes back to that instant gratification thing. It's just
Hmm.
everybody's very just like about getting something very quick, right? In a matter of a month. And I don't ever like to say there's one problem, but there's definitely a lot of people that are like, body image insecurities and they want to, get that fast track to sort of catch up to other people. And I get it, right? Like we all have had those insecurities arise, but you got to go about it the right way. And I think comes back to what we were talking about earlier. You have to appreciate the journey, and it's
Yeah,
it's fun if you could just work out for 1 week and then you already have like the physique of like a Chris Bumstead, then it wouldn't be fun. Like, and then you
yeah,
have to maintain
exactly.
that. It's the fact that you're seeing those milestones, right? You hit that weight on the squat rack or the bench, and then you're trying to increase it over time. If that's what makes it fun, and then you ultimately see that improvement in your body from that.
Yeah, that's my whole like that's pretty similar to the philosophy that I started this podcast with. The reason it's called the Grateful Podcast is because I'm a very ambitious person, and a lot of times it's hard to appreciate progress or the journey when you have a goal in mind and you're chasing something. But I realize like we're all humans, we're looking for fulfillment in one way or the other. I think that's the common just trait among all of us. We all are searching for some type of fulfillment. And to get that, I think the best way is to be ambitious, working towards something, but grateful for what you have and what you're doing. So I
So
called
true.
that the duality of gratitude and ambition. And it's like just we can do things for fun. We can love what we're doing right now. It's worth it.
It's so true. I feel like the gratitude you're putting in now is kind of adding fuel to the fire to actually help you get to where you want to be. It adds fuel to that motivation that you're looking to have. Like, right, if you don't ground yourself with the gratitude, then you're just never going to have the right platform to actually like jump off of to reach where you want to go.
I love the way you put that. Yeah. It's like gratitude is not complacency. I think we see those two conflated a lot, and they're not the same thing at all.
No, it's all about the right way of reframing it. Right, it's not just gratitude for what you do have; it's gratitude for the troubles that are to come, the troubles in the motion of doing something that you're struggling at. Right, like uh, we can go back to the podcast stuff, right? Like none of these people out there started with millions of views, right? They built it up over time, but you would never stay motivated on improving and growing. And the same thing with these like VO2 max and these other longevity measures. It's all about improving over time, and you sort of are grateful for that journey,
Hmm.
and that's what keeps on just having that compounding effect and keeps you motivated.
Exactly. Yeah. So what are you most grateful for that's fueling your journey?
I do a lot of stupid things. Like I just went skydiving Thursday, and
I saw that. It's
then I
awesome.
ran the half yesterday, and I got my first marathon a month. I'm always just doing something to get myself out of my comfort zone, and thankfully, in 24 years, I haven't done anything majorly stupid yet to get seriously injured. And so I hope that doesn't come, but I also think that as cliche as it is, you gotta live life to the fullest. You never know what you're gonna have next day, so if you can pack out that schedule of all those different things you really want to do, you just gotta go into it with that mindset, right?
Yeah, dude, I'm with you on that. I was gonna go skydiving this spring. We had something come up, so we had to reschedule. So hopefully I'm going this summer. I'm super
Definitely
psyched.
go. It
Did
was
was it
the
your first time?
Yeah, I'm going again in a month. I told my friend that I just went with, I said I'll do it after the marathon, just so I don't break my ankle before the marathon.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You, you should do it in the same day. Run a marathon, then go skydiving.
You're actually bringing up something I was just telling one of my friends. I said I'm gonna be the first person to do a skydive right into an Ironman. That's gonna be my goal. Just buckle up for
Okay.
5 years from now. I think that would be a cool idea.
I love that idea.
You
When I
land right in
was
the
so
water and start swimming.
That's crazy. I spent my junior year abroad in France and I was in the Alps skiing and I saw this dude that had a parachute and he like skydived down, parachute, skis on his feet, landed, skied off a cliff, parachuted down, skied. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
That's actually such a underrated aspect. It's beyond all the health stuff that we've been talking about. It's just like the capabilities of a human. It's really extraordinary. And with all the technology coming out now, it's just insane what we're capable of doing, right? Like you just said that. And then we're also thinking of like these wingsuit gliders. Now you just like these jetpacks coming out, right? With that one company, Gravity. Like some of the stuff that we were reading when we were kids and we got all giddy about, they're very real now and they're coming out. It's nothing's really impossible until it happens.
I wonder when Iron Man's gonna exist for the first time.
Yeah, I think we're coming there right now because you got those gravity propulsion systems with like gravity and yeah, I think we're there. I really think in our lifetime we're gonna see some things that we just thought would be in a storybook, but it's gonna get very real very fast.
That's insane. That's insane. Well, Matt, thank you so much for this conversation, man. This has been wonderful.
I had a great time. I really appreciate you taking me on, and I want nothing for the best roof in your podcast, man. I really think you're going about everything the right way. And yeah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Tell my audience where they can find you.
You can find me at my Zenith project on Instagram, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Matt.
Take care, man.
I'm 18. I host the Grateful Podcast, and I've made a decision. I'm going to hit 100,000 downloads of my podcast before I leave for college on August 31st. I don't care how crazy it sounds. I'm all in. Every single day, I'll update you on my progress, wins, losses, strategy, doubt, everything. Let's see how far this goes. Follow along if you want to see me pull it off or burn out in the process.